Try signing on your iPad. Because you tried it and it did not work. See? Oh.
Almost caught.
I'm gonna text it to you.
You know, we're talking, we're gonna move to a public comment now.
Okay.
So that we can.
Right. Sorry, do you guys can get started, or if we want, I feel like no one's here.
Yeah, I so we can do the public comment.
Do you like that idea? Okay.
Let me just fix the camera.
Yeah.
Hey, sorry, a few minutes. Thanks for being here.
We didn't know about the college fair when we set this night. Not for us. Yep, that's good. I think so. Maybe just a little bit more to the direction you were going. Yep, that's good. Hi, Linda. Yes.
Hello. Hi. Sorry, my I am in a meeting right now. Okay, hold on one second. It's saying, can I give you his phone number and can you maybe try helping him? I apologize. Oh, hold on. Miles just oh, hold on. Let me send this to him.
Do you have a because it's coming through on the
take your time. I am in a meeting right now.
My mic.
Hold on one second. It's saying.
it's
Mics are on. Your mic's on. Here, I'm gonna get this one. Hey, Linda, this will be your mic number. It is on. First, I got here for you. You can here too.
Yeah, well, when we start, we can stand.
Careful with my food trucker. Yeah. All right. All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here, especially with the weather as we have it today. I just want to do a mic check real quick. Can everybody go ahead and just do a mic check, guys?
Check, check.
Check, 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 check.
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3.
Democracy.
There we go. All right, I think we're good. All right, so roll call. Sam Schoenberg.
Present.
Jenny Schaefer.
Here.
Murillo Garcia, present. All right. We're gonna just go over the agenda. We have moved some things around, just so you guys know we're gonna do public comment at the front versus the end as we have done in the past. So we're gonna get into our updates and then our main discussion about care as planned, and then we have a few just reminders and calls to action, and of course our next meeting announcement at the end.
And we're doing public comment at the beginning just because of the crazy weather and not many people are here yet, and the couch for everything that's going on right now. So if there is something you want to talk about at the end, also we can chat after the meeting too.
So there are no votes today, so we can go ahead and skip the vote section today. So we'll go right into the public comment. If anybody has a public comment, please step to the front. We can record you for 2 minutes. You'll state your first and last name, and then we would go into my timer, which y'all are familiar with. Anybody have public comment? And of course, if questions come up throughout the presentation, we would love to take questions.
Right.
Good? No. All right. We're going to dive into our updates, and we'll start with Sam.
Sure. So the first, I'll just make sure we're on the right page. We wanted to make sure that folks know about the Know Your Rights cards that I believe we have at the table at the back here. They're available in English and in Spanish. The Chicago Office of Immigrant, Migrant, and Refugee Rights also has the Know Your Rights document in English, Spanish, several other languages. We've got links on this presentation that we'll post online. Certainly, I've been thinking a lot about this particular issue recently, as we've had issues with, for instance, Mahmoud Khalil, the student at Columbia who was a legal permanent resident, green card holder, who was arrested and deported or threatened with deportation, is currently detained, I believe, still in Louisiana, essentially for having protested, which is a First Amendment right that anyone in the United States, regardless of your status, is afforded. So this is an issue that's been on my mind, and want to make sure that our community has this information as well. I do think it is relevant to the safety of folks that we have here in our community, in the 19th District and throughout Chicago. Move on. Also wanted to let folks know that there are about 8 or 9 different police accountability organizations in Chicago. We are one of them, but one that does investigative work for complaints of alleged police misconduct is called the Civilian Office of Police Accountability, or COPA. The Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability, which is a body that we are tied to, has the authority to hire the chief of that, or the administrator of COPA. There is now a vacancy in that position because the former chief administrator, Andrea Kirsten, left that position within the last month. CCPSA, the Community Commission, has launched a nationwide search for the next chief administrator of that position. That search is going on right now. They're also gathering community input from the community to help them make that decision. We've shared more information on this in our newsletter, and I'm happy to share any other information that folks would like, but wanted to let you know that that search was happening. And if you don't get our newsletter, make sure you sign in at the back there, because we put a lot of work into it, I promise, but we don't flood your inboxes. And we want to make sure to share that information with you as we have it.
Up next is our workforce allocation study update. As you know, it's underway. We are still really working hard to make sure that district council members have a piece in what community engagement looks like. For the workforce allocation study, we submitted a proposal to the CPD superintendent's office. On March 14th, we received a response to her from our, sorry, on the 24th, we submitted a proposal. On March 14th, we got a response saying that they needed 10 more days to respond. So we will let you know what that looks like. But since that was what we got, we also have had Alderman Matt Martin write a letter in support of making sure that district council members have a piece in that community engagement process, as well as the GAPA Coalition, as well as actually the CCPSA commissioners are also really feel like this is an important piece that district councils, we were really created for doing just that, for making sure that community feedback is gathered and then used to strengthen processes within CPD. So we're hopeful that we'll be able to have a say in what that looks like and make sure that the community has a say in it as well.
Sorry, just making sure there's a mic for the questions.
Right. Oh, can we go to the next slide real quick? Okay. One of the things that we're asking, since we've been really advocating hard for this, and it's looking promising, I hope. But one of the things that we're asking community to do, if you're interested in helping make sure that DCs have a role in this community engagement piece, is emailing Gary and Gatewood, who is in the mayor's office of community safety. So that is an action step for you all. His email is there, and again, we always post these afterwards, so feel free to check it out. One other thing that we wanted to make sure you guys are aware of is we've been talking a lot about workforce allocation study. We had a meeting in January where we asked CPD to come and present kind of what the beginning phases were. We heard back in that same email on March 14th that since they couldn't come to our meeting in January and said there's going to be a meeting, they're offering to have one of their managing directors, Allison Clark Henson, present on the study at the commission meeting on April 24th at the Pi Talk Center, which is on the south side. I don't know yet if the commission has agreed if that's going to work with their schedule, but just wanted to keep you updated about what's going on with that.
So we want to also update you on the 911 calls for service analysis that we have been hearing throughout multiple initiatives. We've heard that a 911 call analysis is part of the mayor's people's plan. We just haven't had any update as to whether or not that is ongoing, if there's any updates there. We also have not received any clarity as to 911 calls analysis actually being part of the workforce allocation study. At one point we were told it was, at another point we've heard that it isn't. So we're trying to gain clarity as to whether or not that actually is going to happen in one way or the other through the city, but that also puts much more weight into the work that we've done ourselves as a district council, and we're looking forward to continuing the 911 calls analysis on our own. So now for the community partnership plan. As you know, we create updates for the community every month and want to present progress. This week, again, as you've seen before, we've been really focusing on the 911 calls for service and workforce allocation study. So that's an indication as to why you haven't seen many green numbers here, but we have had an extra completion on one of our goals. I did want to commend the district council for 80% in progress, ongoing, completed. We have not had this plan launched for a year yet, and yet we are 80% of the way there. So I'm really happy with progress overall in the last 10 months.
One exciting addition from our CPP was we've been gathering all the community groups, especially the leaders of those groups. So understanding that strong communities are formed when there's lots of engagement and neighbors knowing one another. One of the things that came out of that meeting with the leaders was it'd be nice to have this neighborhood map so that people could easily find what neighborhood group that they belong to. And so we created that, and it's up on our website on the 19thdistrictcouncil.com in the resource portal under the neighborhood group. And so obviously it's interactive. You can zoom in, and then when you zoom in, you can get the number, the name of the group that you're in, the Facebook group, or the Facebook that the group belongs to, as well as the email and the website. Sorry, I feel like this was a chaotic start to my day.
A lot of rain, a lot of weather, a lot of.
I do want to give a shout out to this map. Like Jenny did had to wrangle a lot of resources to get this made. And it was a great learning experience, I think, for us on like how the city can help with its resources in creating a map like this. And some alder people I have seen have similar maps with the neighborhood groups in each of their wards. This is the first one I've seen that combines all of the neighborhood groups in this large of an area. And so kudos to you for getting that done.
Thank you. It also shows like the wards that you're in, so you're able to kind of just get some more information there too. So I did.
The next thing I want to mention is that we're excited that the 911 calls for service analysis that Murillo launched with community volunteer Rick Federick and among others last month or last year is getting some traction in city council in an interesting way. One thing that we reported when we did just a calls for service analysis here in the 19th district is that about 10% of the 911 calls that the 19th police district receives are for parking violations. After getting more than 5.5 million 911 calls records for the last several years from OEMC, the Office of Emergency Management and Communications, that analysis showed that the CPD as a whole gets about 100,000 calls every year for parking violations. That is total about 7.8% of all 911 calls. In our district, it's about 10%. In the districts with the highest volume of parking calls, it's up to 14.5%. So we think this is not a great use of officers' time, and that we already have a service in the city through the Department of Finance that has non-sworn officers, civilian personnel who are dispatched to deal with parking tickets. So our idea is to have the Department of Finance handle 911 calls or calls for parking violations in the first instance. Hopefully this could free up some of officers' time to focus more on serious and violent crime and build relationships in the community. And Alderman Matt Martin, who covers the 47th Ward, which is within the 19th District, is part of the Public Safety Committee at City Council, and he introduced a resolution to have us and a few others join a subject matter hearing on this idea, to present this analysis and present this idea, and start to ask questions for what it would look like to implement this program on April 1st. You're all welcome to come. It's a public meeting just like this one. It's going to be downtown at City Hall, 10:30 in the morning on Tuesday, April 1st. We'll be joined by a district councilor from the 8th Police District, Jason Huff, who works for OEMC and has had work experience working in other city departments as well. And we're excited to hopefully advance this idea. You can, if you're interested in joining us, there's a little QR code there that you can scan, or you can go to bit.ly/19DC parking to sign up to join us at the hearing, and we would love to have you there. And before we move on to the next thing, I just did want to give a quick shout out to Sam, who is Senator Feigenholtz's chief of staff. Thank you for joining us. Senator Feigenholtz has been working with me and other district council members and with Representative Ann Williams to introduce legislation in Springfield to help make district councils more functional, because under the current version of the Open Meetings Act, no two members on a police district council can communicate with each other in any way about our official duties without having a public meeting scheduled 48 hours in advance in person. This includes email, text message, phone calls. We very much are committed to transparency, which is why we publish everything that we do here at these meetings for you all to see. But that restriction has made it very hard for us to do the kind of community building and information gathering and sharing that we think that this role was created to do. And so we're really excited to hopefully advance that in Springfield.
So before we dive into our main content tonight, we want to just remind folks of our perspective on mental health, specifically when it comes to public safety. You've heard us say this before, but our working goal when it comes to mental health is expanding public safety resources with solutions that fit specific issues in our community, which will allow police to focus on serious or violent crime and building relationships with community. This is inclusive of mental health crises. As you heard Sam just talk about parking violations, let's do more with what we have and make sure that the police are responding to the situations that we feel are most and best suited for them, right? So this goes along with our topic tonight. As you've heard us talk about at length in our 2 years in existence, there are lots of mental health resources in our city, in our district specifically. We've talked about 988, the crisis intervention team at CPD, other mobile crisis response teams that are community-based, such as Thresholds. But today we're here to talk about CARE, which stands for Crisis Assistance Response and Engagement, and it is now offered through the Chicago Department of Public Health. So we wanted to just put that in perspective. We really advocate for the use of alternative response, specifically mental health crisis teams provided by the city, so that frees up our police to do to focus on serious and violent crime. And as you've heard Commander Drasani publicly at our meetings before, he believes that police officers should not be responding to mental health. So resources like this are critical and exactly what we're hoping for to build a holistic public safety system.
And just because it's really important to know that there are these options available, we have this sheet on the back table, and it just kind of goes over the 4 options: the CARE team, the 988 hotline, the IT officer, and mobile crisis response team. So, and just gives you a little bit more information. But like Maria said, today we're going to really focus on the CARE piece of things. And with that, we are going to dive into a presentation that I worked on with Dr. Seibert. Do you want to come on up?
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for working on this with me. We've been talking about the CARE team in this district since we ran for this position. We in the 19th district have the highest volume of mental health crisis calls across the city. It's either the highest or the second highest. So this is really something that's important. Getting it right and making sure we have the right types of responses available is something that's really important to us. And when we were talking about it, Dr. Seibert was excited about it as well and wanted to jump on and help out. So she's been doing a lot of research, and we put together a slide deck that we've actually been sharing with with many different groups, including I've had 2 sessions with district council members, and I'm opening up to a 3rd tomorrow as well. So far we've presented to 12 out of the 22 different district councils, and I know there'll be a couple more joining as well tomorrow. So this is something that we're really hoping to spread awareness about across the city, so that more and more people know about the CARE team and understand and help to advocate for the continuation of CARE services. So we're just going to start by sharing what is mental health mobile crisis response. So when people talk about mental health crisis response, there's a continuum of services that they really talk about. The first is making sure you have a place to call. So that is numbers like 911 or 988, which is a place to call. The second is someone to respond. So we're talking about these mobile crisis teams. This is what we'll be focusing the majority of this discussion on. And then just to finish full circle, it's also important to have the place to go, the third place, where when the person does need to be transported, where that can be taken, that's not a jail, that's not a hospital. What is the most appropriate environment for them?
And I'm a volunteer, so I'm looking at the mental health aspects of CARE. So that's where I'm going to weigh in a bit and talk about some other programs that we also want to look at as best examples. So just to leverage on to what Jenny is saying, the mental health crisis response model is one that has different levels. So one level, and pardon me, I'm referring to my notes, so I'm extremely accurate. There's a crisis intervention team model. It's sometimes called the CIT model. And this is where there are specially trained police officers who've been acquainted in generally like a 40-hour class on how to look at individuals you come upon in terms of what are the signs and signals that there might be a mental health issue, and perhaps how to refer or address the situation right in front of them. The other one is a co-responder model. So this is a second approach. And this is a collaborative approach where a police officer is paired with a mental health professional, specially trained, and they respond specifically to behavioral health presenting issues in the community. A third one is the mobile crisis response team for alternate policing. So this is again where often the model, as we can see here, where calls come in 911, They could be either the need for a police officer with your so-called traditional policing, or it could be that there's a presenting issue of mental health. And then that's segmented. And then what you'll have is a team, often a police officer and a specially trained clinical person will go out, often with an EMT as well, because you look at physical and mental health issues. And that's then a team of a third type of iteration.
And really, that's what we're going to be focusing on today, is that third type, the non-police response. But and just for a little bit of background, the 19th District Care Team used to be the co-response model. And we have recently transitioned now to the alternative response team. There's lots of different names for these teams. It's really not standardized. But that's kind of the general gist.
Right.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. And then the next slide, you'll see goals of the MCRT. And these often include 4 specific goals or objectives. The first is to be able to send experts in right away at the point of understanding what's going on in the field that are well-versed in mental health crisis management. So it's not just a mental health person, it's a person who can also deal with mental health plus a presenting crisis, which is a whole other skill set. And they often are there to quickly assess, often to de-escalate, and then deal with the situation at hand, which could be a presenting issue of that person, perhaps presenting suicide thoughts, or their family, and often their community. So they have to assess the entire context and deal with that appropriately. So that takes a really, really sophisticated skill set. The idea behind this really is to see this as almost a win-win. And I'm always interested in how officers look at this. And that is to reduce the unnecessary use of sending officers out for every single situation that comes into 911. And this model, therefore, siphons off those where the appropriate resources at the get-go, if they're mental health issues, they are sent as opposed to a uniformed officer who then deals with a situation when in fact maybe they're needed in a violent situation in another part of the city. So it might very well intersect with the model of looking at the resource allocation of officers too, as a way to offset, along with civilianization, of the kind of calls that the officers get through 911. Also, this model provides long-term solutions as well, because it's one thing to deal with a person and de-escalate them in a crisis or understand their suicidality dimension, but then this model also refers them to social services, to mental health services, often back to their own helping professionals, which often is very important. They may have missed several appointments. So it's really dealing with a system of services. The situation, assessing it, looking at what that person is needing and the context around it. So also, this can reduce for the EMTs unnecessary transports to the hospital, because you have mental health professionals taking care of that part, assessing if it's necessary, and then following up to get people to the hospital if needed. Then I'm going to go into MCRT call types, and I'm just going to go through a list here. MCRTs are crisis interventionists, so they have to be well-versed in the range of mental health presenting issues. So this might range from suicide ideation, which means suicidal thoughts, which means somebody may be in process of thinking about suicide or actually in the act of committing suicide. They may also interact with individuals who have severe presenting anxiety or panic attacks, psychotic episodes. Psychosis, generally speaking, is a disassociation from reality, and that can be in a whole range of a spectrum. There also could be substance abuse or substance use issues. I would bet that every single crisis interventionist and EMT is well armed with Narcan, which can save a life as soon as they administer it. And they can also deal with just emotional distress, trauma. Perhaps they've witnessed a traumatic event, been part of a traumatic event. And also another aspect is to do welfare checks you know, we haven't heard from the person, the neighbor in a while, so let's go check on them. Recently there was a, you know, case in the news with Gene Hackman. Nobody checked on him until a neighbor finally said, gee, we haven't seen him for weeks. And they found, you know, he was on the floor and his wife was on the floor as well. And that's so important to just check on people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And just one last thing on that, when the call is a violent call, that is still something that
Yes.
that the police officer should be responding
Absolutely.
to. There's different models where you can send a mental health clinician alongside a police officer. We don't have that right now in Chicago, but just to be clear that for violent calls, we are not advocating to send a clinician by themselves.
Right. True. Thank you, Jenny, for that.
Some benefits of the MCRT teams. Clearly, the most important is during a mental health crisis, individuals deserve responders who are specifically trained and equipped with the right tools to stabilize the situation, provide effective support, and wraparound care. So obviously the number one benefit is that it provides the appropriate care to the person in crisis. So like we talked about, it helps to make sure the person gets stabilized in the situation that they're in. It also makes sure that the person has people responding who are specialized and able to provide the immediate type of care. And like we said, it also helps connect them to the long-term resources that will really address the root cause of their crisis. We also want to point out that there are benefits to the police as well. By removing mental health calls from police plate, it frees them, like we said, to address the serious and violent crimes that are happening in the community. It also allows them to be out in the community, engaging and building trust with community and strengthening those relationships, which we know is so important to making strong communities, safe communities. Also, especially in Chicago, under a consent decree, making sure that we're able to meet those requirements. They have requirements about how many officers can be underneath one supervisor, and making sure that they can meet those, and also not only that, but also be patrolling the same beats consistently. Those are all things that the consent decree asks for, and it's hard to when you're jumping from 911 call, 911 call, 911 call. And also, just it's important to prioritize the officer wellness, and by making sure that they're responding to the calls that they're prepared for and have the training to respond to is good for officers. Also, again, not feeling like you're actually doing the job that you were trained to do, and you have time to be in the community, interact with the community, is good for officer wellness. Another thing that we've kind of mentioned already, but over the past 3 years, we've maintained around a force of around 11,700 sworn officers. So despite trying to hire, and the city has goals of hiring more officers, we've kind of maintained right at this level. So we really need to make sure that we are smart and thoughtful and effective and efficient with officers we do have, knowing that despite efforts, we can't reach the higher goal that the city has set for itself. So to kind of sum that up, police officers often lack the specialized training for mental health emergencies, leading to less effective outcomes in these situations. Their valuable time and resources are better spent addressing serious and violent crimes and building trust within the community. And also, to maximize police efficiency and effectiveness, we must assess the calls officers respond to and explore diverting suitable call types to external agencies who are better equipped for them. So that's kind of mobile crisis in general. Now we want to spend some time diving into the care team. I'm going to talk about that, and then Linda's going to talk about what other cities are doing, so that we can continue learning from other cities. That is a picture of the caravan. If you ever see it driving around the 19th district, give them a wave. Like we said, they seek to connect individuals in the community experiencing nonviolent mental health crisis with behavioral health teams that are equipped to address the unmet health and social needs of community. The care team is staffed by a clinician alongside an EMT worker, and it's dispatched through 911. It's specifically to mental health disturbances, well-being checks, suspicious person, criminal trespassing, and threatening suicide. Those are the call types that they have the authorization right now to go out to. like we talked about, they offer on-scene de-escalation, they offer access to mental health assessment, referrals, transports when needed, and they are able to conduct follow-ups after 1 day, 7 days, 30 days after they encounter an individual. So it's really great and really exciting that we have this in the 19th district. This is a map of the other districts it's in. As it's in 7 districts with 6 bands. So 2 districts share 1 band. So we have the 6 bands operating in 7 districts, and we also have the citywide band, which is only you're able to get through emailing this email address, careprogram@cityofchicago.org, but I think they want to be able to deliver their services citywide. But obviously, I think the most robust services happen in the blue districts, where they actually have vans that operate. One important thing to note is that the care teams respond to calls only Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. So as you can see, we have this great program, but it's still so limited in the impact it can have in Chicago. And there's really a lot of room for expansion in our district, but also expansion citywide. And that's one of the things that we want to be advocating for. And this next slide kind of shows that. The red box minus the Sunday and the Saturday are the hours of operation for care team. Clearly, and obviously it's a heat map, so the darker the box, the higher number of calls. So clearly there is a lot of room for need for expansion, and a lot of times when people are having mental health crisis that the care vans are not operating in. A little bit more about the care team, the impact it's had so far. So like I mentioned at the very beginning, the care team was a pilot that had a police officer alongside a mental health clinician. It recently has just undergone a new transition, so it's the mental health clinician and the EMT worker. So data has kind of stopped from the first pilot and now is picked up again with the new data. The city, I talked to them recently, and I guess there are technical issues and dashboard issues, so they don't have the dashboard up quite yet. But this is the number that they were able to give me in this period between December 16th and January 31st. They were able to have 103 care responses, 104 care follow-ups, and they were able to serve 84 unique individuals. This is with the 4 vans that were serving the 5 districts. Another thing is that they recently expanded to the 7 vans. So clearly, you know, these numbers need to grow, and we can't continue to be seeing the care team only responding to 100 calls in, you know, 45 days. That's not enough. But I think with awareness of the care team's existence, with training from the dispatch center to make sure they can get the care vans out, and with familiarity, I really think that these numbers will grow on their own. And I think the numbers are important, but stories are also really important. And I'll just read this story because I think it's shows the impact of the care team. The care team was requested by the police department to assist with a young adult who had written a troubling letter expressing anger and a vague threat toward loved ones. The care team met with the family and the individual in crisis, and in a tense but compassionate conversation, they learned the young adult had been overwhelmed by pressure and isolation since graduating high school. Care first responders de-escalated the situation, connecting them with a local youth-focused community program known for its mentorship and emotional support. By the end of the visit, the family anxiety had eased, and the young adult agreed to explore the program, offering a glimmer of hope for healing. As they left, the care team couldn't help but feel they'd arrived at a pivotal moment. So I think that story just shows the extra level of care and support that the care team was able to give to families and people in crisis.
And also the heat map that Jenny was talking about, I did a quick analysis because you remember there's the bars Monday through Friday and the 10 to 4 window. And I looked at just on Friday and Saturdays in District 19 that there were about 3,000 mental health identify calls that are not being dealt with because they're outside of that window of time, just Friday and Saturday. So there's definitely a need there.
So now we're going to talk a little bit about other cities.
Yeah. So I'm going to focus on two, and the first one is Albuquerque, New Mexico. You may say, well, you know, it's a very small city. Maybe it's about 500,000 people, but they also have a lot of, they have some recognition of the need to rethink their policing. So it didn't get off the ground right away, but 3 years later, it is now the care equivalent program in Albuquerque, ACS as it's commonly referred to, Albuquerque Care. It now has an official place within the mayor's administration. They even have their own building, and they've escalated. They right now have job openings for about 100 people to join the care team. It's their care equivalent. And just to give you a couple of items about the Albuquerque program, that as of September 1st, 2024, so it's pretty recent data, the ACS program responded to more than 82,000 service calls, with 85% of those calls successfully diverted from the Albuquerque Police Department. So that's a pretty amazing number. And that just doesn't happen overnight. And I think this leverages on what Jenny was saying. It's also because they have massive communication. They really get the word out in the community. It's part of the mayor's administration. It's a priority that they are implementing. Another fact about it is that, as I've said, they have 103 openings right now for behavioral health specialists and crisis interventionists. And they also have recently introduced a 24/7, so 24 hours a day, 7 days a week model. And so, in other words, they cover the graveyard shift at night. And they have found that that has been very, very important for them. And just in that time, at the end of 2023, they responded already to over 8,500 calls. So just to talk about the calls by time of day, because they now are able to do some analysis. This is an interesting chart because, as you can see, the total calls are 40,191 in Albuquerque, and the highest number is during the day for unsheltered individuals. And however, they also have in the graveyard shift 771. And just going down, another big bucket that they have to deal with is the wellness call to check on people to see if they're okay, and also suicide. And as we know, suicide as an issue in our society has really escalated in the last 10 to 15 years. So it's a very serious issue. And often suicide is a series of events. It's not just one event, but it really is involving a lot of individuals to intervene.
And one other thing about that 40,000 number, I think that just shows that if they're able to respond to 40,000 calls in a year, it shows that we really have a lot of room to grow as well as in the care team.
Well taken. And so also they in Albuquerque, very quickly, their ACS program, they've been able to break down the percentage of the types of call outcomes and the frequency of outcomes as well. And this is for the fiscal year 2024, the last quarter. So 29.2% of their calls are actually what they call ghost calls. They arrive and they don't find anybody. But on the other hand, the mobile unit, the crisis individuals, crisis interventionists are going to those calls rather than the police having to go to them. And this is a high number that they are dealing with and try to resolve if they find the person or not. But this is a high number. They also perform welfare checks, and of course, then they transport people as well. And often they give what's called a warm handoff. So they deal with the individual at the point of meeting, and then they're able to warm transfer. You know, after talking with the person, assessing what they need, they can often refer them to social services, housing resources, food resources, mental health services. So one call can really create a whole web of support for an individual when they are handled by the care team or their equivalent in Albuquerque. So as we've said, there's in response times, there is area for growth. So I'm not going to go through each detail, but you can see the response time areas for growth in one of the slides.
That's in, yeah. And
Pardon me?
I know,
Oh, thank you. I'm getting cold.
Thank you. You did a great job.
Thank you. She's always on top of it. It's a pleasure to work with Jenny. The AFR callouts or responders canceled for safety reasons. So this is going back to a point that Jenny was making earlier, that if the crisis interventionists, the mobile responders, come on site and they assess that it's a dangerous situation, they will not intervene. They will call upon their colleague who is a uniform officer who knows how to handle that situation. They're special there because of their special training.
And that's one other thing about that we just learned is that the caravan also they're set up to police, right? I think they're on the fire side of the regular, but they're able to quickly connect to police if they need them.
Right. And just briefly, some information about New York City. Pretty, if we are going to use a model, New York City is probably a very good one, or Los Angeles. So you can see some statistics here if you can strain your eyes a little bit. So we have the total number of mental health calls, 51,000. So far on your far left, okay, 51,329, and they're just getting started. They're only in a couple of areas in New York City, and this is what is happening already. So then you can see, breaking it down, that calls 30,878 are mental health calls not eligible for Be Heard, the program. And behavioral, Be Heard stands for Behavioral Health Assistance Response Division, so otherwise known as Be Heard. And then you'll see that 20,451 mental health identified calls are eligible for Be Heard. And there we keep going, 14,951 are responded to, 7,417 are patient contacts, and then 3,691, they receive a mental health assessment. So you can see the funneling of the initial reaction, response, assessment, and then how these calls are handled as well.
Is there eligibility similar to what we see here in Chicago in terms of just violence, or do we know how those are deemed eligible?
Yeah, they also make sure that if there is an issue, that they call in the uniform officers as well. But again, they often have to assess that at the site.
Got it.
Right. Thank you for the question.
Yeah.
If anyone has any questions, also feel free to raise your hand and ask.
Yeah. Okay.
There'll be time at the end also.
And also Be Heard is 7 days a week, 16 hours a day. So they're not 24. They're only in East Harlem and parts of Central and North Harlem. So they're only in, the certain areas, very much like we're experiencing here in Chicago. Okay. So in the next slide, this is results of a client survey of those who participated in the program Be Heard in New York City in those couple of restricted areas. So of the individuals who were queried, the individuals who actually experienced Be Heard, 96% reported that Be Heard, in their opinion, they felt that they were helped. That's a pretty high number. 98% said that Be Heard, the individuals who approached them and worked with them, treated them with courtesy and respect. And 94% said that of those who had received an EMS, or emergency medical response, in the past, felt that Be Heard response was more appropriate for their needs. And we're not going to go through Denver.
Right. That's crisis team.
Yeah. we're gonna. So from the map, you can see that there are programs all over the country. There was one survey that found over 70 programs, and it's growing. A lot of this was going on. Actually, this crisis mobile response effort has been going on for over 30 years. It started out in Eugene, Oregon, in a program called Cahoots, and they have been operating with the base of a mental health center, and they're very well known in the community now. And so this is not something new, but it was reinvigorated after the George Floyd issue, where people began to question what else can we do? Do we need to rethink this or reimagine how we can be most effective with police and deal with, let's face it, the police are called to do everything, right? So this is an attempt to respect their excellent skills and wrap around train people that can deal with many situations that we find in the community. And just as a caveat, I was at a U.S. Congress hearing, and even the Surgeon General of the United States said one of the biggest issues we have in this country right now is loneliness. Loneliness. And that, of course, presents many different issues that we've just talked about. So Chicago's not alone, but we, of course, believe that Chicago can be the leader in the country.
Yeah.
I just wanted to
Be heard? Yes.
I don't think that I saw that in
No, I don't see that in the report, but that's an excellent question because it's a really good comparison. I can try to find that out. I'll see if there's a report that's come out recently because they're still in the pilot. Excellent question. Thank you, sir.
And we had some numbers from the Albuquerque
Yes.
program. I believe it was about 1%.
Yeah, just under 1%.
About 1% in Albuquerque, which is a city of 500,000 people.
1%.
Yeah.
So, no, go ahead. Appreciate it.
Has any care team, any local crisis team members been injured in this project you know of?
Not that we know of.
Not that I've heard of. I do know that there was I've researched so many of these different cities and I can't remember which one, but there's models to make sure that people feel supported and that the workers, right, the response team gets the type of support that they need. And there has been studies asking them, like, did you feel safe and did you feel like you were protected? And I have seen like those numbers are very, very, very high for the calls that they've been responding to.
For the responders?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, good question.
So yeah, with that map of all the different types of mental health crisis teams that are happening around the country, like we want to make sure Chicago continues to be we want Chicago to lead the way in what mental health crisis response team looks like, and we need to make sure that our care team continues to exist in the city. And this is why we kind of talked about it in our newsletter, and I hope a lot of you guys know that there's next steps that need to happen. Basically, a large majority of the funding from CARE comes from ARPA dollars, federal money that was from the COVID relief package. So those dollars are all running out at the end of the year. So we need to make sure that we have a way to fund CARE so that it can continue on to the future. And it's important that we start advocating now for the expansion of CARE instead of waiting until October budget season when everything is crazy and everyone is trying to get their priorities in. That's why we're bringing it up to you now, and we're actually going to give you guys actionable steps that you can do to help make sure that not only is this funded as it is, but also that it continues to expand in the city. And the exciting thing is that it's really quite an achievable goal. The city told us that it costs about $4 million annually to maintain the current services that we have right now. So the six districts, plus the citywide team running 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. That's $4 million. $7 million annually to if we expand into evenings and weekends for those same 6 districts and the citywide team. And then to set up a new team, it's about $650,000 to add a new care team, and that includes both the clinician and the EMT worker, their supplies, the vehicle maintenance, their portion of supervision, and the case management team staff, and all overhead costs. So really, when we're talking about the Chicago budget, we know that we're in a dire situation, but these are very small numbers, and there's got to be ways that we can find this kind of money to have the kind of impact that it could have in the city.
For comparison, the full Chicago budget is $17 billion. We're talking here about less than 10 million with an M to maintain the program as it exists right now. And obviously, we do think it needs to expand, but hope we can find those resources. That is a $2 billion.
And that is a very hard question to answer because there's also
And sorry again about the parking.
and the rain. Yeah, I think the city budget in general is very opaque to understand any department really where the money comes from, because there's a lot that is not in that $2 billion budget that is specifically for the police department. But good question. Okay, so we're gonna take action now. Actions that you guys can take. One, we're asking you for city council action to call or email the mayor and your alderperson and let them know that you want the care program to be fully funded in the 2026 budget. And the other thing is to reach out to the commission, and there's going to be ways to do this on the next slide. So I like to see phones out. Get them ready on the next slide. But just as a quick overview of how we think the commission can help. The commission doesn't have any direct authority to pass the care budget but what they can do is that they can make a recommendation to city council that this is an important thing that they want to see funded. And so that's what we're asking them to do. I think that their voice and that their advocacy is just another layer of signifying the importance of the continuation of the care team. So we're asking you to either A, make public comment, or B, send a letter to them asking them for this recommendation. And on the next slide is when I'm going to ask you to take out your phones. These are 2 different ways. The first, the box on your right is a way to email the mayor.
Your left.
That's my right, your left. I told you it was a long day. Email the mayor and the other person. There'll be a form button that you can use that, or feel free to make your own. And on the right is the email for the CCPSA. So I'm gonna ask Maril to put some music on, so we're not sitting in quiet. But if everyone could take out their phone and take care of that, and make those 2, send those emails. That would be fantastic.
1 second.
You're blocking the QR code.
I know.
All right.
Getting Jenny.
You want to just put it out there? So just
Oh, it's one of my favorite songs. Here, let me put it back into this slideshow.
Awesome. Don't go texting them when people are looking up. I'll move on to the next slide.
Did it?
Good. Well, good. We're trying to get into the 18th.
Huh?
We're trying to get into the 18th.
Great.
Okay. Thank you guys very much for taking the time to do that. And there's more. Other ways that you can get involved. Number one, this slide deck is a public document. I am encouraging people to take the slide deck and share it out with others and think about who's in your community. Do you have, a church group, a school group, a neighbor group that you want to pull together and share this with them so that we can continue to let it spread out and make sure more and more people know about this and are advocating together as a team. It's a lot, the more people power that this has, the more chance it has of growing and making the impact we intended to. Like I mentioned, we've shared this with 12 out of 22 district councils so far, and there'll be more tomorrow. And hopefully they'll be sharing at their meetings so that we'll get more of a citywide effort really trying to spread awareness and advocacy for the CARE program. The other thing is we have these one-pagers that I put out on table, and there's also some more in the back. They didn't copy very nicely, but
that's at home. Sorry to block you.
But we're asking you to take some of them with you, or I also have a link available for them. Print them out and distribute them. Put them in all your neighbors, not their mailbox, but next to them. Talk to your friends, pass that out. And you thought you were done with QR codes, but we've got one more QR code where you can talk about which of these things that you're going to do. So Maria will cue the music again. And I'll give you guys just another couple minutes to fill out this one last QR code about what action steps you can commit to. Because really the more that we get together and get community involved in this, the stronger the effort is going to be. So I really, really appreciate you guys thinking about how you can be part of the impact and spreading the word about the CARE team.
I did that too.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay. Yes. I mean, I think, yeah. Yes.
Ideally, we'd like to see this across the city. Yeah.
At least maintenance, I think,
Yeah.
in this tough budgetary time, but we really are aiming for expanding it.
Yeah. So sustain, expand, embedded in the city council budget.
Good question. Any other questions about people? You know what? I feel like it's hard to fill out and answer questions. I'm gonna give you guys one more minute to fill that out. And then we can answer questions and move on.
The council action music.
I know, it makes me like,
We need to take action on.
Don't criticize me.
Okay. Any other questions that people have about any of the things that we presented on tonight? Go ahead, Jen.
Is there any statistics that show how much we're saving?
Wow.
Maybe all the I didn't know.
I have
But
some.
or you can say this CARE program, it really doesn't cost $4 billion. It really costs much less because saving this much more time allowed this one on other things, which is more important, maybe more important system, given the city's crowd.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and it's something that I've talked about with the CARE team. I think that they are just right now, they don't have that information when I ask them, but I think it's something that's important to start collecting and thinking about, especially like how much time. I know they are starting to collect how much time a care team spends on a call to have an idea of how much time that's taking, that's taking them. So that's information that once the new dashboard is up, and it sounds like that it's kind of stuck in city bureaucracy. It might be a couple months still, but hopefully we'll have good data to share soon.
If I may just interject, we do have one piece of data from the CAHOOTS program from Oregon, because they have published their statistics. Remember I told you they've been in effect over 31 years, and they do a lot of analysis. And they have reported that between 2014 and 17, that the CAHOOTS program, by just using it, saved $8.4 million a year to the budget of the city. And it addressed all the way from suicide risk, homicide risk, self-harm, intoxication, rage. And remember I said harm, not the actual incident where we would have the police officers come in. But that's once, because the past can predict the future, or at least use it as an approximation.
New York.
They haven't yet, to my knowledge, because they're pretty new. And I think they're waiting for some more data to come about. And then I'm going to check the website, because what you're talking about is return on investment. What are you investing and what are you getting out of it? And what are the outcomes and what do they mean? And what are you saving and offsetting from the city budget, and maybe reallocating it or freeing up police to do what they do best and using the money in a different way? Thank you for your question.
Another thing I want to mention too is, I know we talk about all the time the workforce allocation study. We're hoping that that's going to shed some light in terms of just data sources to be recorded. I know the consent decree talks about having an overall analysis of how data is collected. One of the reasons I'm talking about this is because Rick and I very much know this. In a 911 calls analysis, you can only code an event or a call as one thing. So there are very limited codes within the 911 calls for analysis that actually relate back to mental health. The OIG and their dashboard, they have a few different ways that they describe behavioral health, but my viewpoint is that it should be much more dynamic than that. So then you can understand how many calls are coming in with a mental health component. And then you can then think about how many of these calls could have gone to the care team versus CPD, right? And so that's another lens or angle that we want to get at, to your question, John, about the return on investment and just the potential efficiency that we can gain from having something like care.
Mhm.
Right now, is that for 4 million wasn't budgeted for here, or was that being expended? Right now, at least maybe a couple of weeks I looked at it today, there were 11. So, and it is in the budget, so, okay. So, at the end of the year, it's that important how to do it. Anyway, and it's also going to do that. And if they don't have to do that, those who are not.
Yeah, totally. I have a monthly call with the care team, and I haven't heard anything about those 11 vacant positions. I'm going to ask them what I haven't heard anything about that, so I'm curious as well. I do know that the city hiring process is very, very laborious and slow. It takes a long, long time. So maybe it's, I don't know. I will, if you want to give me your email address, I can definitely try and get an answer to that. The other thing about the reports, University of Chicago, the health lab did put out a report at the end of the pilot program that detailed what happened and what they found from the pilot program. Again, we didn't use a ton of that information because it's very different under this new program without the police officer on the team. So we wanted to keep that data separate.
Got a question, Beth?
Mm-hmm.
First 6 months of the program, receive a level of activity. But when we think about parity scaled out citywide, think about it as essentially being 100 to 120 for having 24/7 answers across every district across 100 to 100. Now that's not saying that there's massive teams in every district. That's just saying that we have one team within every district that is operating 24/7. And then to get to a small response to so about $100 million. That ends up being a little bit around 5% of the entire Chicago. So answering much more than 5% of the calls, but about 5% is direct calls.
Thank you. Any other questions before we move on to the last few things? Mm-hmm. That report's supposed to come out right around now. I haven't heard about it yet, but it's definitely on our radar of trying to get the information. It's also, for some reason that we're not quite sure of, it's part of the workforce allocation study engagement plan. So that's something that we're really interested in getting as well.
I attended one of those meetings and it was very much that understanding where folks wanted police to respond to. And yeah, it's a good point. The engagement sessions ran for 2 months, I think.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the year. 2 or 3 months.
Yeah. Okay. Public announcements. We like to. The next slide.
Should we thank Linda?
Oh yeah. I'm sorry. Thank you, Linda, so much.
Thank you.
Linda has done a tremendous amount of research in this, and your expertise in this field was really helpful. So I really appreciate all you.
Yeah, it's helped with that. You're very welcome. And the three of you, all the work you do, and the audience, your questions are excellent. And I also want to say that you're setting the tone and the model for what other districts are going to try to do as well. I'm from the 18th district, so we're going to, try to get this going. And one of our strategies is going to be to coalesce a lot of the hard-hitting, high-volume voter neighborhood associations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it.
Thank you for allowing me.
Okay, so like we said, strong communities, safe communities really come together when we have community groups are active. There are places to go, things to do. People know each other. And so for us, it's really important to welcome any community group members here, let them share any things that are coming up in their community group. Once we are going to start by talking about the treatment, not trauma, citywide 101 that's coming up. Is there someone here that wants to speak on that? Go ahead.
Treatment Not Trauma is one campaign for the last 5 years around reopening public mental health centers and creating non-profit response. So it was the campaign that seeded the original work that was the kickoff of creating the program with Chicago and was the driving force of creating a non-profit response about it. And that work has been built off of a decade plus of work that has been done, really rooted in South Side around the original closing down all centers that straight up shut down the old time period, as well as their goods downtown during the so the Treatment Not Trauma campaign is like going strong, and this year our folks are really very much aligned with what you saw here in the presentation, which is how do we maintain the services that we have, which is maintain the public health centers, maintain the crisis response programs, and then let's expand them as well. There's supposed to be an expansion that happens this year that will come because we want to see what happens, and we want to see it. And then we also want to see integration into the public health. It was never meant for the crisis response teams to just operate on their own, operate on their own. They're all a part of the same ecosystem where they should be working and taking that post-crisis care and also long-term care. So when we think about the budget priorities that we have, and we have major our culture. So we have a one-on-one tomorrow, and that's how we learn more. It's really a piece of what it is. You can be able to tomorrow during this training, virtual, and then there are ways to plug into it, and ways to talk with us around. We want to pass some ordinance that really puts systems to code. That way, it can't do it a little bit better. Yeah. We want to make sure that we have coordinated pressure across the city when we think about making sure that every dollar is from us. So we want to be a part of the product life, but definitely have to use and the RCP is not particularly right there, which is really /320 and all.
Thank you very much. Highly encourage people to attend that. Any other person from any neighborhood groups or anything that they want to share with the community? All right. Then last couple of calls to action. Reminder to take some of those one-pagers on your way out. And the last reminder that we always give, we really do want to hear from you guys. This is successful because of our partnership with the community. We are really always available, but we have these like office hours to be extra available. But if these don't work for you, always feel free to reach out and we can definitely find a time because our power comes from you guys. So
and we want to just thank our hosts here at Lane Tech. So thanks for hosting us. And then with that, and I think a record time, we're adjourning at 7:49. So thanks so much for coming. Our next meeting. And our next meeting is Wednesday, April 23rd at the AM Center. So please join us for that. Hopefully we won't be facing thunderstorms that day.
Thank you very much for
Thanks, folks.